Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2. We went back about 30 seconds. Claudius is about to die. So, let's start it, and we're about to see Aurelian, I believe, come into power. But let's get back to the video.
His younger brother Quintilius, currently stationed at Aquileia, was declared emperor by the Senate. But in an act typical of the crisis of the 3rd century, the new emperor was not recognized by the legions that served under Claudius, who instead threw their support behind his right-hand man, the talented Illyrian cavalry general Lucius Domitius Aurelianus, more commonly known as Aurelian.
Aurelian. What was I? Was I saying Aurelian? Aurelian. Aurelian is what I said. My apologies.
It looked like more war and turmoil would engulf what remained of the Roman Empire. But the reign of Quintilius proved extraordinarily brief, possibly lasting as few as 17 days. He committed suicide, realizing he had little hope against the army of Aurelian. The Senate now recognized Aurelian as the new emperor, but he inherited a state in a dismal condition that had been disintegrating for the past 20 years. Vast territories remained outside of central imperial control, some for nearly a generation. Internal turmoil encouraged pressure from external enemies, and renewed incursions by the tribes north of the Danube spread devastation deep into the interior. And, with yet another emperor seizing power, the threat of civil wars again grew as new usurpers arose, exploiting the imperial insecurities and the influence of armies on Roman politics. The spiraling political and economic crisis impacted agriculture and commerce the most, which was compounded by the pestilence that had first swept through the empire around the year 250, greatly diminishing manpower for the armies and taxation. Nonetheless, the new emperor steeled himself for the difficult road ahead.
This...
Come on.
You're not ready for it.
Come on. No one cares. No one wants to play this game. Everyone wants to get back to the video. So let's do that. Back to the video.
In the east, seeking to strengthen the image and power of her regime, Queen Zenobia skillfully played the political game. She exploited the turmoil in Rome, but was careful not to provoke a war with the new emperor. Her mints at Antioch and Alexandria recognized Aurelian as emperor, producing coins in his name. But she also now struck coins bearing the face of her son Vaballathus, honoring him as imperator, a military title of republican origins that was now associated with emperors. In this way, Zenobia gave him imperial status, whilst cleverly avoiding the title of Augustus, which would have unambiguously designated him as emperor, blatantly challenging Aurelian.
I hate this mouse. I hate this computer. I just hate this thing. Okay, back to the video.
Authority. Roman mints were spread widely across the empire, and emperors used them to make political statements to their subjects. The populace often learned of a new Roman emperor when coins appeared with his portrait. Thus, the circulation of coins bearing Vaballathus's face undoubtedly solidified his authority over the Palmyrene domain, but it was also an encroachment on Aurelian's authority. Zenobia's power play extended further. Her coins bore inscriptions that recorded the number of years that Vaballathus had ruled the East, thereby showing that he had been in power longer than the emperor, as if to suggest her son's seniority over Aurelian. Coupled with this web of political intrigue, Zenobia began the expansion of her army and moved into Asia Minor. She captured Tyana in Cappadocia and Ancyra in Galatia, and attempted to seize Chalcedon in Bithynia, which resisted and remained loyal to Aurelian. With this show of force, the Queen wanted to hinder any offensive by the Emperor, while she also played the long game, slowly building up the power of her realm. But despite the Palmyrene expansion further hindering the Empire's reunification, the Gothic problem in the Balkans remained unresolved, and Aurelian's own position was far from stable. The first order of business for the Emperor was to strengthen his rule in the territories that were still under central control. Aurelian was an exceptional leader of armies, and he campaigned with unmatched energy. In 270, he stopped a Jutungian invasion of northern Italy, fighting a series of actions before defeating them in a decisive battle on the Danube. He caught them in the middle of crossing the river, weighed down with plunder and prisoners. However, while he was consolidating his power in Italy, the Pannonian frontier was left vulnerable to attack, and an army of Vandals crossed the river in force, pillaging the region. Later that year, he tasked Placidianus with defending Italy against a possible attack by the Gallic Empire, before departing east to set up his headquarters in Siscia. It was here that he assumed his consulship on New Year's Day, 271 AD. This office would normally have been assumed at Rome, and it was unusual for an emperor to assume the consulship without even setting foot in the old capital. This was a further sign of the diminishing role of Rome in imperial pomp at this time. By now the season had advanced, making it difficult for the Vandals to live off the land, and knowing that the enemy was not equipped for siege warfare, Aurelian evacuated the livestock and food supplies into the fortified cities. Once he was satisfied that the war of attrition had weakened the barbarians and that his own supply lines were established, he marched to meet the Vandals. The campaign was a grueling affair, but after an indecisive first battle, the barbarians were subsequently defeated in the Pannonian interior. The Vandals sued for peace, handing over hostages and providing 2,000 horsemen for the Roman army, and the Romans provided them with supplies for their journey back to the Danube. The emperor, however...
That's a fair trade. I figured they would give that, and then the alternative would be, okay, we're only going to kill 50% of you and the rest can go. That's not really a good outcome, but it worked, at least. It's fair.
Had little respite in which to savor his victory, and in early 271 he was forced to march back west. The Jutungi had returned, this time probably with a coalition of other Germanic tribes, launching a major invasion of Italy. They destroyed numerous towns and countryside in the Po Valley before pushing south, threatening Rome itself. At first, Aurelian's army suffered an ambush at Placentia, but he managed to regroup his battered army and follow the trail of devastation that marked the enemy's route down the Adriatic coast. Knowing that the Romans were on their heels, the barbarians stayed on the march, aiming to cross the Apennines towards the capital. But Aurelian managed to catch up with them. On the banks of the Metaurus River, he achieved a major victory in the Battle of Fano. Subsequently, he pushed the invaders back across the Po River before dealing a crushing defeat to the Irtungi in the Battle of Ticinum. The victory broke the strength of the tribes along the upper Danube and put an end to Germanic invasions against Italy until the times of Alaric in the 400s, nearly 150 years later.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the invasion caused panic in Rome itself, and this, combined with the endemic corruption, had sparked a major rebellion against the emperor. Aurelian force-marched his army to the capital, defeated the rebels and executed the conspirators, using the crisis to purge the political landscape of his rivals as well, many of whom had supported Quintilius. Usurpers in Dalmatia and southern Gaul, seeking to exploit the chaos, were either defeated in battle or assassinated, and construction began on a massive new system of walls to better protect the capital. But again, Aurelian had no time to waste. After briefly overseeing work on the new defenses, the emperor marched back east to the Balkans. Due to his elevation to the purple and the resulting power struggle in Rome, the Gothic War remained unfinished business. And now the ranks of marauding bands had swelled, posing a great menace to Thrace. They were led by King Canabas. This Goth was possibly none other than King Caniva, who had famously destroyed the army of the Emperor Decius at the Battle of Abratus 20 years prior, an event etched in the memory of the Romans. By the time Aurelian arrived with his army, the Goths had already inflicted considerable damage. But, in a stunning twist, the Roman Emperor inflicted on them a crushing defeat. However, unlike his predecessors, he did not stop there. Rather, crossing the Danube, he invaded their homeland and scored a decisive victory over King Canabas, who was killed in combat. The Roman army then proceeded to sack Gothic settlements and lay waste to their lands. And in a planned propaganda move, countless captive women were deported to Rome to be later displayed dressed as Amazons in Aurelian's triumph. This was the most decisive victory a Roman army had in this region throughout the troubled 3rd century. Then, in a radical rethinking of regional strategy, the emperor withdrew Rome's military and administrative presence from Dacia. The province had been weakly garrisoned since the reign of Gallienus. By abandoning it altogether, Aurelian could rationalize the long and undermanned Danubian frontier from which he collected troops, and repopulate the Balkans, devastated by war, with the people he evacuated from Dacia. Now, he was ready to retake the East. Credit goes to our awesome patrons who...
Okay, so that was the big build-up. So we're about to see the fighting. That I love you, but you're on my... There you go. So the area that he gave up, he repopulated basically with... I want to say sympathizers, but people who he knew they weren't gonna fight him, or they weren't gonna try to start anything. That's smart. Why hold on to an area if you don't have enough support really to hold on to it? Because now you've got troops, up in that area. Just give it back, let it repopulate it. That's a smart thing. Bring your troops down, and you have probably more troops down here because you got to go up like that. Well, now you bring them on down. Now you got a nice border. What are you doing? I got a hungry hippo down here. Okay. Oh, now you're over here too, huh? You both want rubbins. Do you want to say something to the audience? Is that, nope, okay, nope. She wanted nothing to do with you guys. I apologize. It's very rude. You're not coming up on my lap. No, you're not. You're cute, but it's not happening. I'll rip your face off. Okay, so we're going to end this here. This is part 1. We'll get into, well, this is part 2 of part 1. I think the next one I'll do in full because it was under 25 minutes. So, I'm going to jump right into that one now. But you don't need to worry about that. There's a thanks button. You can donate to the channel if you'd like. You don't have to. If you don't want to, or you can't, or whatever, I get it. You could give a thumbs up. That's a cheap alternative. And by cheap, it's free. That helps me. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. And if you're somebody who likes to just go around, some people just like to give thumbs down to videos. If you're one of those people, I want you to think hard about the thumbs down that you've just given and what it accomplished in your life. And then I want you to know that deep down inside, I want to see something happen to you involving maybe your feet accidentally left in concrete, and then maybe you're thrown into the water and you've got a lot of like chum and fish guts around you. Yeah, I want to see you get your way out of that. You deserve it. A lot of sharks around. I'm only thinking about what's best for you. And that's what I think is best for you. So until next time, you have a good day, have a good night.